Greetings, everyone. I want to welcome you back to another episode of Heal and Thrive podcast. And today I'm going to be diving into a topic that I don't think we talk enough about. And because I had a realization around today's topic, I want to share it with you. And today's topic is the lessons our daughters learn from the relationships we tolerate. So go ahead and grab your favorite beverage, a notebook, and a pen, and meet me back here. So I want to welcome you back. So let's just dive right in because one of the things that I have been reflecting on as I've been on this healing journey, and when I was in, especially when I was in my marriage, that we as women, especially us mothers, we often believe that the experiences that we go through, the relationships that we go through, are separate from our children. And we sometimes may think that, even if we don't involve them in our problems or we try to keep it private, that they're not really seeing what's happening. And what I've always said is that even though that relationship, they can try that man and that woman can try to keep certain things low key where they feel as though, okay, well, we're not going to argue in front of the children, we're not going to do this, but there's still tension in the home. What they don't understand, children are very intuitive and they can pick up on energy. Just because they don't see or hear you fighting or arguing, and this is just for some, they does not mean that they don't feel that energy in the home where it doesn't feel loving, it doesn't feel peaceful, it feels like everything is on edge. And we don't understand that that is the energy of our homes. Is your home peaceful? Is your home a place where you know things can flow freely, or creativity can flow freely, there's laughter, there's joy, there's just peace when you enter into that home? Or is there a lot of chaos in that home where people are always on edge and attitudes just flying around? You can tell the different energies when you even enter into certain rooms. So why do we not think that our children don't feel that, even though some people may try to hide it, feeling as though, well, long as we don't argue in front of the children, they'll think everything is okay. No, children are very intuitive and they know when, that household is not a peaceful home. And another key aspect with some couples is the communication. The only way they communicate is through fussing and fighting and arguing and slamming doors and belittling one another, talking down to one another, being disrespectful to one another. And children hear that. Sometimes the children be like, oh, here go mom and dad again, or here go mom with her boyfriend, or dad with his girlfriend. So they understand when that dynamic comes. A lot of times they'll probably just go away and walk in the room and close the door because they don't want to hear it. And again, that brings that energy in the home because the two parents who are the foundation of that home or wherever you are, it's supposed to set an environment that is conducive for growth for your children, because you are basically showing your children how you handle conflict. And I'm not saying there's things that, each other may do right or wrong, or things that frustrate each other, but it still comes to a place where two adults who have to sit down and basically understand how we are communicating our relationship to our children. How are we coming off to our children? Because how we communicate, not to say that our children, they have their own minds when they grow up and they choose whoever their partners are. Of course, they're going to go off on their own thinking, their own mindset, but you are modeling to them what a relationship looks like. They may not agree with it, but you don't understand, subconsciously they're taking in certain things that's going on in that household. How many times have mom got on the phone and vented to her girlfriend about what the man, whether it was her husband or just, her living companion, whoever that is, that he done something to her. Maybe he cheated on her, he lied on her, or he lied to the family about her, or he spent money he shouldn't have spent, and she's on the phone crying to her girlfriend. You don't think the children don't know that because they hear those conversations? Sometimes they walk in the room and they see their mother crying, and even though she may not divulge what she's crying about because she wants to keep that private or away from the kids, they feel that tension. And even me, telling you this, looking back in hindsight at certain things that I went through in my marriage at that time, where my daughter would see me crying and she'd be like, "Ma, are you okay? What's wrong? What's wrong? Did you and dad have a fight? Did you and dad have an argument?" And I would just kind of nix it off and brush it away, like, "It's okay, it's okay, I'm good, I'm good." But I'm sitting there and I'm crying. So what am I speaking to my daughter without really verbalizing? I'm speaking to her that I'm putting up with someone who makes me unhappy. I'm putting up with someone who makes me sad. I'm putting up with, even though that's your dad, but I'm still showing you that I'm not happy in this marriage. So are you going to choose to stay with a counterpart based on what I'm choosing in my life? Are you going to choose to put up with someone who is going to disrespect you, who is going to, and I'm not saying my husband cheat on me or beat on me because that didn't happen, but what I am saying is that is my daughter or my children going to choose counterparts based on what I'm accepting in my relationship, because they're feeling like, well, mom put up with it because she sees dad and she's trying to be there for him and she's trying to do all these things. So not only have I made excuses for the father, but even the children will make excuses because they feeling like, well, that's what we do. We cover one another, we protect one another. But when does it come where we pull the covers off of what should not be covered? It's time to stop sweeping stuff under the rug and acting like when we go out in public, oh, we're a happy home, we're a happy family. But soon as we hit that door, everybody is like in their separate rooms, isolating, not talking to each other, not communicating. There's no unity within the family unit. And what about the woman who is being physically abused in the home? And the children know this. They hear it and they see it. They see her black eyes. They see the bruises on her body. But they also see her making excuses for him, because now after the fight is over, now he comes back and he apologizes. Oh, he cries and he may bring her flowers and he may say, oh, it's never going to happen again. And she believes it, even though deep inside she doesn't believe it. She just has lost herself so much she doesn't even know how to even move forward to get out of that situation. And what I came to realize is that even before my daughter was born, because we don't understand what generational curses are. Because I even realized at the time when I was living with my mom as a teenager, the men who she was entertaining, and seeing her go through abuse, seeing her make excuses. Sometimes you don't even realize that that plays in your subconscious for even when you are choosing counterparts or when you are dealing with someone. You don't even think back, well, this is what my mom put up with, I'm not going to put up with that. This is what happened, in my mom's situation. We don't understand because that generational curse, it's like it's repeating another cycle in the next generation. And even as I've been going on this healing journey, I had to realize and say, wow, what did I teach my daughter through me accepting the treatment from her father? And even when I saw my daughter in a relationship that was so beneath her, that wasn't serving her, that was hurting her physically as well as mentally, and me trying to speak to her in that regard to say, you don't have to put up with this, you don't have to deal with that, and he's not the one for you. But in my life, I was still putting up with disrespect. I was still putting up with the person who didn't value me. I was putting up with a person who was gaslighting me, mentally exhausting me, financially controlling me, doing all these things. But I'm sitting here trying to speak to her about her relationship, but I was not even dealing with my own because I wasn't even aware at that time. But when I started to now go online and started to look up certain characteristics of what I was dealing with and what I was going through, and when I came to the realization that I was in a toxic, narcissistic marriage. Now, it didn't start that way, but as time went on, I started noticing this person change up. And a lot of times, again, we stay in situations because we believe that, oh, well, we're just supposed to stay together for the children, or we just don't give up on one another, and don't come from a religious background, because they will try to beat you over your head to death with the Bible about God hates divorce. And I'll say, yeah, but he also hates his daughters being abused, because his word says, do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers. I'm sorry, anyone that wants to treat their wife like she doesn't have her own mind, that they're not being loving toward her, they're not treating her with respect, they're doing things that doesn't bring unity in the home, that is not someone who is walking righteously. That is someone who is walking in a way that doesn't respect family or their wives. So how can they be the head of the household when they are mistreating the woman that God gave to them? And I wouldn't even say the woman that God gave to them, because if they're unequally yoked, that was a decision that we made based on whatever mindset that we were in at the time. Because a lot of unions that are together was not ordained by the Most High. Let me just say that. So, what do we really teach our children when we stay in situations where we're constantly sacrificing our peace, constantly overlooking disrespect, constantly hoping someone will change while we slowly lose ourselves in that process? And we may think we're just trying to hold the relationship together, but what we're teaching our children is learning that love means to endure pain. And here I want to give grace to the women who basically stay in these relationships out of fear, because I've experienced that as well. When fear grips you to the point where you just are stuck in a place because you're fearful that this person is going to end your life, hurt your children, or do something so drastic, and you stay in a place where your nervous system never gets the chance to settle. You're always trying to predict the mood that this person is in so you don't set them off, so you don't have to face their wrath of whatever they're going through internally, because most of the time it's internally. They're projecting their own issues onto you, and you become their punching bag in that relationship. And this is where I say, women or woman, whoever I'm speaking to at this point in this podcast, I would implore you to please go and get some help as soon as possible, because your life deserves to be lived to the fullest, and not you sitting walking on eggshells waiting for somebody to change. Because the bottom line, if they haven't changed at this point, they're not going to. And it's time for you to free yourself so you can live the life that you deserve to live. And it is possible. There is nothing under the sun that God cannot do for you and your children. If you speak that in your heart, just know that the Most High will make a way for you to get out of that situation. All you have to do is say, Father, I'm done, and I need you to show me now how to get out of this situation, because sometimes you cannot tell that person what you're getting ready to do. Sometimes, we get into the heat of an argument or whatever, and be like, I'm leaving, I'm leaving. And if they think that you're going to leave, they will do everything to hinder you from moving forward. So sometimes you cannot tell a person, especially if they are very violent toward you, you can't tell them your moves. You just have to make those moves in silence. And I know that part of the unknown is sometimes what keeps us stuck, because we don't know, well, how it's going to pan out, what's going to happen here. Leave that up to the divine to work that out for you. You've already carried enough mental and emotional baggage. It's time to cast your cares onto him, so this way he can now guide you. He will probably do it through a friend, through someone that you may, call upon to, help you with certain resources. However, the divine chooses to show up in your life, be open to it and don't be fearful. This is a point in your life that you may be fighting for your life, fighting for your children's life. And if that is where you are now saying you're ready for that to happen, then now you have to make that decision in your heart and settle it. Don't worry about what you're losing, what you're leaving behind, because your life is more important than any material possession on the face of this earth. So, what do our daughters learn to carry, and what do we model for them? Because whether we fight back or whether we stay silent, whether we cry or whether we keep it together, right? Whether we stayed or whether we considered leaving the relationship or the marriage, what is being archived inside of them is this is what love does. And this is not a statement to blame or to cast blame. It's about grief. Because I know I was doing the best that I could with what I understood at the time. But when my understanding changed, that's when I realized I have generational curses to break in my bloodline. And sometimes we wonder why we go through so much in our life, because we're here to break those generational curses that our ancestors could not break in their generation. We don't understand it can be curses around finances. We wonder why finances is so sporadic and why we can't never hold on to things, because it could have been certain contracts that our ancestors, were under, or maybe they signed contracts that they didn't even know that they were signing, because most of them couldn't read back during that time, and it basically stole their property and stole their livelihood. And we don't understand, now we're dealing with the effects of that being passed down to generations, where it seems like our money is all, never can, we can never hold on to anything, and we have to break those contracts even to the third and fourth generations, even to our ancestors who didn't know what things that they were signing. This is so much more deeper than just being in a relationship with a counterpart. It's about, is there generational curses around my finances, generational curses around marriage, generational curses around even childbearing? Because there are women right now who can't bear children and they feel like something is wrong with them, but they don't understand that there could be a generational curse where an ancestor in their bloodline was, you know, doing abortions, or doing illegal abortions, or doing whatever it was that was against what the Most High deemed. So what end up happening is the curse that fell on that generation is these women would not be able to carry to full term. They would either have miscarriages, or certain things would be happening in their womb. So now we have to get back to the place where we start looking at, what areas in my life do I feel that there is a lot of struggle around? Because if I can identify the areas in my life that have a lot of struggle around it, maybe those are the generational curses that I need to break. And how I break that is, for each struggle that I feel like I've been having over the course of my life, I am now going to write that down and say, I break these generational curses, or whatever that is. If it's finance, if it's childbearing, if it's maybe can't find a suitable partner, or you're always attracting certain different type of partners, now you're going to start breaking generational curses around those type of situations, where you say, I break this generational curse around not being able to find a suitable counterpart that is going to treat me with respect. And I cancel every assignment and contract that was created by ancestors that came before me, that maybe signed contracts or made vows according to this specific issue. And you write that down, and then you burn it and you release it, or whatever you choose to do, to rip it up or whatever. But you're writing it down to release it, to release that energy off of your bloodline and off of your legacy of your children, so they don't have to repeat that. And what I want to say to those daughters who may be listening to this podcast, and I want to just give so much grace and care here, because I know sometimes it's about making sense of your own lives and what maybe even you have committed to in your relationships. Because when a daughter watches her mother be dismissed, criticized, about her appearance, maybe her weight, the decisions she makes, even the mother being cheated on, and then she watches her mother stay, she learns something, that love includes betrayal, that staying is what loyalty should look like, that her own worth is something that can be negotiated away. And that is such a lie. because we as women have put up with so much. We have stayed in relationships and marriages at the expense of losing ourselves so much to the point of where some women have become numb, where they just don't have any emotion or feelings. It's like when you look at them, their face is just a blank slate because all of the energy, all of the life have been sucked out of them, and they're just a shell that's there. They're mechanically just moving through their day because it's just habit, but there's no life there. There's no joy there. There's no peace there. It's just they have given up on life, and I don't want you to go down that road. I don't want you to give up on life because there is so much life to be lived, and you can rise above any situation that doesn't serve your highest purpose. So when our daughters watch us being financially controlled, that even we're maybe given allowance like a child, that we have to ask permission to, have some money for our personals or something that we want, we teach our daughters that financial dependency is normal. When they watch our emotions being manipulated or we being gaslighted, that constant rewiring of reality, it's like we're being told that what she clearly saw did not happen. So she's going to end up growing up questioning her own perception. She may even become someone who second guesses herself constantly, always in her head, who apologizes when she is not wrong. How many times have we apologized to our counterpart or whoever that was who we were in a relationship with because they gaslighted the hell out of us to the point where we're apologizing for something that they did? And here's what I learned about breaking generational curses, because I could not break what I could not identify. And it was very heart-wrenching to realize the years that I've abandoned myself, that I allowed someone to disrespect me, that I allowed someone to continue to gaslight me and put me in a state of fear and uncertainty about my own life. But what even was more even devastating than me coming to the realization of what I allowed in my life was the realization of what I modeled to my daughter, and seeing her going through the abuse in relationships she chose to be in. And so how the divine put me and my daughter back together, because when me and my daughter came together, my daughter was just coming out of a 7-year abusive relationship where she was being manipulated, cheated on, physically abused. And when she came back into my life and she seen what I was going through with her dad, and the divine moved us to a new state together, it was a point of us healing. And even in the course of us going through what we had to go through, there was a lot of situations that were very chaotic, because when two people have gone through traumatic situations, we have all of this pent up emotion, anxiety, and trauma, and sometimes it spills out onto each other because we're still going through those effects of what has been done to us. And even though we don't want to be mean and hurt each other, sometimes it just happens that way where we're living in the same household, but we are bumping heads because there's still healing that needs to be done. And when I started reaching out and reading certain books on healing, reading certain books on, getting to the place where I understood what my wounds were, and sharing with her what I was reading, and then developing my own healing card deck that would help me to not lose myself again in another connection, to set proper boundaries, to go in and do that deep inner work, and then to understand that even though me and her are on different journeys, I can't rush her process to heal, just like she can't rush my process to heal. And I have to give grace to her to come to the conclusion of what when she's ready to heal certain parts of her life that was traumatic and that was abusive and things that she went through, because sometimes we're on different timelines when it comes to our healing, and even though I may be a little bit further advanced than her in that journey, doesn't mean that I try to pull her to where I'm at, because she may not be ready to walk where I'm at right now. She still has a process to go through, and the same thing with me. Certain things she may have gone through that she has overcome, maybe I'm not ready in that aspect, because we come together and we share different things that we learned. And the breaking point, another breaking point for us, is when I was looking at a podcast and they were sharing this book called Sacred Woman. I think it's by Queen Afua. I can't her last name is spelled AFUA. And I bought that book because it was talking about womb healing. It was talking about how we as women need to take our power back, that we have to understand how sacred our womb is, that it's a portal, and why sometimes we experience so many different health issues around our womb, where it's heavy menstruals, fibroids, PCOS, and just so many different things that women experience in their bodies because of trauma, because of how we allowed men who were not even worthy to lay down with us, how we have given our bodies over to people who have basically disrupted our energy and our flow of who we are as a woman. And I love this book. And the thing that I want to just give a disclaimer, because the book, she does talk heavily about the Egyptian religion, and I'm not into that. But one thing that the Most High does, and I love how just simple the spirit of the Most High is, because you can read something and you can take out the principle of a situation without going into the religion of it, if that makes sense. Because I think sometimes when people are heavily involved in a certain religion, they feel as though, oh, well, I can't read anything else. I can't read on this, I can't read on that, because I'm just, centered on this. Because if you're loyal to the Most High, one thing that the Most High has showed me and taught me is that knowledge is power. But not only just knowledge is power, but when you apply it to your life, it even becomes more powerful. Because just knowing something, there's a lot of people who know what to do, doesn't mean they always do it. People know that going into a store and stealing is wrong. They have the knowledge, they know that's wrong, but they still may do it, right? But it's when you apply that knowledge where it becomes powerful. But the thing that I wanted to speak here is that if you know that your allegiance, or you gravitate to the Most High, he will have me read something that could be of a whole nother religion, or a whole nother something that has a key principle that can help me transform, or help me to get to the place where I'm trying to go, where now that information is another key that unlocks another, what I would say, a spiritual aspect of my growth. It's not me complying with what this person believes in as far as what deities they follow. It's the principle of the healing of the womb, the principle of knowing how sacred your womb is, how you just don't give that away to someone, that the person who lays down with you is worthy of that. It is something that the Most High has uh deemed worthy to be in your presence, into your life, into your energy. And when we start looking at our bodies and our sexual organs as something to be honored, instead of just giving away to someone who basically looks at us and gives us any bit of attention, we're now holding that thing as sacred. And this is why, for women who are, celibate and abstaining from sex, they're honing and harnessing their power. So this way now they become more intuitive. They learn more about themselves, and they become more aware of what they want and what they don't want. They're not just taking people anymore about what they say. They're looking for people who's going to show up, who's in alignment with their goals and purposes for what their life is, because they've been through so many different seasons in their lives where they've lost themselves. So now they're coming back to their power, where they're now healing their inner being. If you've ever watched any videos where you see these certain individuals who they help these women who have gone through so much trauma, and when they're massaging like their legs or their hip area, and these women are just screaming because they have all this pent up trauma, all this pent up anxiety, and maybe things that have been done to them when they were in their childhood, or maybe even when they were in certain relationships, and now this person is screaming in pain because this person is working through that trauma, through releasing that from their body. And this is another form of that, releasing that energy that no longer serves you, because we don't understand that when we lay down with a person, we can carry that person's energy for a long time. That person's DNA can be in our bodies. And this is why with certain content that I create, I put out newsletters that talk about cord cutting, energetic cord cutting, that people that we have entertained that no longer served our higher purpose, where we can energetically cut those cords. So this way we're not always thinking about them or longing for them, or wanting them in our lives just because we have some type of attachment. Sometimes those soul ties are unhealthy because they were brought into our lives at a point in time where we were vulnerable, where we didn't know ourselves, where we were still going through a lot of different issues. But now that we're coming and awakening to our true selves, now we are understanding that when we pull back our energy, when we hold ourselves as sacred, we're no longer allowing anyone just to talk a good game to us. If a person who's coming into our lives, they're going to have to show up and be that counterpart that the divine says they need to be. And I just did a podcast last week that talks about the chambers of the sacred chambers. And that basically is talking about how to vet a person, how to understand, the levels of access that you give to a person before you give them your heart. So this way you're more equipped. My purpose for this podcast, for this brand, Heal and Thrive, is to equip you with the knowledge, with the information, and with the tools to become a better version of yourselves, where you're not laying down and giving away your power, where you're teaching your sons as well as your daughters how relationships are truly supposed to evolve, and what a healthy relationship looks like. And that first healthy relationship is the relationship with you. You are that first relationship. And if you don't have a relationship with yourself first, you can't create a healthy relationship with someone else, because it depends on where you are in your journey. It depends on how healed you are, because you can't attract a healed person if you're unhealed. Because when you are healed, then you will see and intuitively know and discern if that person is running game on you. You will know that if this person just wants to sleep with you, if this person is just, BSing you and just saying all these things just to, you know, create an attachment. And that comes with sitting with self. It comes with dealing with those inner issues, those childhood wounds, those relationship wounds. It comes with untangling, and that takes time. I think sometimes when people go on this healing journey, they want to hurry up and get so healed because there's just so much waiting for that divine partner to come in. You first be that divine partner. You sit with self. You get to know who you are. You get to understand what it is you've been through, and start understanding now who you are becoming and who do you desire to become. It's no more getting lost in what someone else vision of you is. What's the vision that you have for your life? Because if you don't know who you are, then that person who you are attracting will tell you who they want you to be, that will serve them and not you. And with that being said, I just wanted to just give you this podcast because I think it is so important. Because as I was on this healing journey, and as I'm still on this healing journey, when I purchased that book, Sacred Woman, and I was flipping through it and I said, oh, this is something that my daughter needs. as well. And we went to the park one day and we were, reading through it. And the thing that I love about this book is even though I bought it for me and my daughter, it's not something that we could sit down and do together because based on where she needs to go into a certain, because they have gateways. I think it's 11 or 12 gateways. Depending on the gateway where she feels she needs to access that healing, that's the gateway that she's going to work on for however long she needs to work on it until she feels that she has enough healing in that area. And the same way with me. When I need to work on a certain area, and you could be in that area for a week, 2 weeks, 3 months. It depends on, it's not a rush. You're not rushing your healing. You're basically taking your time and understanding who you are. Because when we've been in relationships for so long where we have lost our identity, we've lost our power, our purpose, and we are just floating through life mechanically, you come to understand that healing takes time. And when you get into that place, into that sweet spot where you're not in the energy of even wanting to be in a connection or relationship because you're basically n- nurturing the relationship with yourself. And with that being said, I have a 7-day free Loving Yourself First challenge. And this challenge is going to help you to set proper boundaries. This challenge is going to help you it has a workbook that's included with it where you can just go through it throughout the 7 days. It's delivered by email. And it's going to help you identify those areas where now you can take back your power, where you can pour back into yourself and become that woman who you desire to be. I know sometimes we may look at social media and we may see certain women who we, admire, and we say, oh, I wish I could be like her, or I wish I could do the things she could do. You have a special calling on your life. You have a purpose for being here. No matter what life has handed you, you have a reason for being on God's green earth. And because you've gone through so many different challenges in life, just shows you that how really powerful you are, because the enemy wanted to take that power and that purpose away from you by putting you into all of these different issues where you would lose yourself. But I am here to call you back to the front line so you can do what you have been created to do and stand not only for yourself, but for your family, for the generations that are coming after you. So now you can cleanse your bloodline of everything that the enemy meant for evil. The Most High is going to turn it around for your good. So the link is going to be in the description of this show notes. And I just want to just give you grace. I want to just say, woman, regardless of what you've gone through, if you are the mother, if you are the daughter, whoever you are listening to today's podcast, I just want to just give you so much grace and send so much love to you. I'm just giving you an energetic hug today and just letting you know you are worthy of good things happening in your life. And this is the quote I want to leave you from the scripture. I don't know exactly where it is in the Bible, but He says, I will restore to you the years that the palmer worm, the cankerworm, and the swarming locust have eaten up. And there's also a scripture that says, and your latter shall be greater than your beginning. So no matter what you've gone through in your life, it should just show you that the enemy tried to take you out, but he does not have the power to do so. Only what you give to him. See, that's what we don't understand. We think that these situations that happen to us, yes, when we were children, when we were smaller, we had no control of what adults did in our lives. But now that you are an adult, you have that power, and that power is in your mouth. The word of the Most High says, death and life is in the power of the tongue. And you can choose the fruit of it. You can choose the fruit to speak life over that situation, or you can choose to speak death over it. But I would encourage you to speak life. And what you start speaking every day, and you don't have to say it out loud, you don't have to say it where other people can hear it. You can just say that thing in your heart. And you can say, Father, I may not know what is going to happen or how you're going to do it, but I am thankful that my latter shall be greater than my beginning, or whatever the Holy Spirit gives you to speak. but I want you to speak it in as it is already happening. Not when, not tomorrow, not next year. I want you to say, this situation is changing now. Because the Bible tells us we walk by faith, not by sight. And a lot of times we get tripped up because we don't see things in the natural. But we have to understand that everything that we want already exists in the spirit realm. But in order for us to bring it into the natural, we got to pull that thing down. And how do we pull it down? We pull it down with our words. We pull it down by staking that claim and decreeing and declaring it until we see it. We don't sit here and say something that's happening in the future, because when we really look at the past and the present, it's already not even, it doesn't exist. There's always the here and now. Every day that you or exist or you wake up, it's already the here and now. So you speak that thing today as though it has already happened. You are already an overcomer. You are already successful. You are already powerful. You are already out of that situation. And one thing that you know how it's working, because I don't know about you, but whenever I would start decreeing and declaring something, something would always happen to get me into the mindset, oh, well, now here this situation popped up, but I'm speaking positive, because that's the enemy trying to pull you back into a situation to make you feel as though it's not working. But whenever you feel there's resistance against what you're decreeing and declaring, that is your confirmation that it's working. And that's when you press in. And that's when you even declare even bolder. That's when you continue to add fuel to that fire. You don't give up. You don't relent. You keep speaking forth what it is, because you are an overcomer, in everything that the enemy meant for evil, God meant it for your good. And part of what I've been called to, according to Isaiah 58:12, it says, those from among you will rebuild the ancient ruins, and you will raise up and restore the age old foundations. You will be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of streets with dwellings. And what this is saying, that God has called me on assignment to come back and restore what has been broken over time, to repair generational patterns and structures, to close gaps where something was broken or damaged. And a lot of us women have been broken and damaged in relationships. And as I speak to you today, I'm coming forth because I cannot stand anything that the enemy does. And I'm coming forth in power, might, and dominion to tear down anything that he does that will not cause us to be in our higher purpose. So with that being said, if you are interested in a 7-day Loving Yourself Free Challenge, you're welcome to join. And if you ever need to drop me an email, if you need encouragement or prayer, I take that as a high honor, because that is what I'm called to. So have a great day, and I will be with you on the next podcast for Heal and Thrive.